25th, 2016. I am JTG, James Thomas Green, and this is my instant review of X-Men Apocalypse. And there will be spoilers. I believe all reviews have some kind of spoilers, and you're just pretending there's no spoilers when you say it's spoiler-free. So anyway, it lived up to its name, Apocalypse, because there was a lot of destruction throughout the movie, starting from the beginning with all kinds of death and buildings falling apart, a pyramid collapsing, a pyramid that apparently has gone unnoticed by anybody, archaeologists, until now, because it completely collapses. Apocalypse had just absorbed the power of another mutant who apparently had a healing factor similar to Wolverine's. Apocalypse is the big bad, and he's a mutant, and he's called the first mutant. And whether he's the first or not, he's simply one of the most powerful of the first mutants. It starts in 3500 BC, where he's basically the ruler of Egypt, or at least a part of Egypt. And while he's absorbing powers from another mutant, he's not absorbing powers. He's transferring his mind into the the other mutant, and then in the process, the new body takes on all the aspects of Apocalypse, including all the powers he's absorbed from before. So maybe that's his base powers, to absorb the powers of other mutants. I don't know. So he gets buried because some rebels basically collapsed the pyramid on top of him, which struck me as very poor engineering that they could just knock down a pyramid the way they did. But it's comic books, and comic books you gotta suspend belief, and weird stuff happens in comic books that don't happen in real life, kind of like other kinds of fiction. So he sleeps from 3500 until he's awoken in the 1982. There are references to Ronald Reagan and Tab and a few other cultural references of 1982, as hairstyles, clothing, and so forth. And he gets out and he prepares immediately to go out and try to take over the world. He starts gathering up other modern powerful mutants, starting with Storm. Now in the comic book, Storm's origin involves Xavier finding her, Professor Xavier, Professor X. And Apocalypse had nothing to do with it, where in this reality, in the movie reality, Apocalypse finds her and increases her powers and makes him one of his followers, the Horseman. So that's one difference. He recruits a few others, a character named Psylocke, who I don't really know a lot about. And he goes after Angel, who again, it's a much different. Both Angel and Storm were good mutants, and I don't know if Storm was ever one of Apocalypse's followers in the movie. I know Angel was, but he was one of the X-Men before that happened. Again, I don't know about Psylocke either. So there are some substantial changes, and he gets Magneto. Now Magneto follows Apocalypse because his human family has been killed since the last movie, which was set 10 years ago. He has found himself a new family, I think in Poland, and in order to save somebody's life, he's working in a steel mill. A bucket of molten iron is about to crush this guy, and he uses his powers to divert the molten steel, and somebody notices it, and then the police come and try to arrest him because they know he's Magneto at that point. And his daughter starts manifesting a power where she starts controlling the birds, and the birds start attacking all the men who have come to arrest her father, and she's screaming. She's about 5, 6 years old, I guess. She's screaming, "I won't let them take you." And then one of them shoots her with an arrow. They all came with non-metallic weapons because Magneto, metal. But the arrow kills his daughter, and he pulls a locket off, and it goes not only through his daughter but through his wife, the same arrow, because they were hugging each other. And then he takes a locket. I'm not clear whether it's from the mother or from the daughter, and he uses this locket as like a weapon. He sends it through the necks of everybody standing there, and they all drop dead. And then later on in the movie, skipping a lot, he is contacted by Apocalypse, who recruits him, increases his power. That's one of Apocalypse's powers, is to increase the power of other mutants. And he joins them, and then using the computer Cerebro, Professor X contacts Magneto, and and while in communication with Magneto, trying to find out what's going on and talking to him, telling him, "I know about your family," Apocalypse realizes what's going on and kind of hacks into Professor X's mind, and then goes over, locates him, and teleports over. It's another power Apocalypse has. He's a teleporter. He teleports over to where Cerebro is, kidnaps Professor X, and blows up the mansion. I'm not clear exactly how that happened. It went by so quickly, but the mansion blows up. And Quicksilver shows up at that point, and he rescues everybody in the mansion while it's blowing up. Then we go from there to skipping a little bit here ahead because this has taken a while. The Apocalypse goes apparently back to the site of his pyramid, which is somewhere near Cairo, I suppose, and he builds a new pyramid and starts Magneto trying to destroy the Earth, because his new power gives him the ability to basically destroy every piece of metal on Earth. And a couple X-Men show up. Now things get a little odd here at this point, because I kind of compare it to the Batman versus Superman scene, where Superman is about to get whipped by Batman because of the kryptonite, and says, "You've got to go save Martha," meaning his mother, and Batman goes, "What do you mean Martha?" And "My mother's Martha." And they become buddies. In other words, it was, just talking kind of changed things a little bit. They talked Magneto into switching sides, and they also, somewhat in the same vein, got Storm to change sides. Like I said, Storm was a good mutant at one point. And then at the very end, just as it looks like Apocalypse is about to win, Professor X has a mental battle, and they have what they call the psychic plane. They have a fight on the psychic plane, where at first he was winning, but then he ended up losing. And Jean Grey is Jean Grey in the X-Men comics is one of the most powerful mutants around, and she's a being called the Phoenix, and she manifested the Phoenix Force and basically vaporized Apocalypse at the end. And apparently somehow it got out that Magneto was not, that all that went on, Magneto helped defeat Apocalypse, so the fact that he had destroyed a lot of the world was never really known by most of the world, apparently. So he became like a free man at that point. And at the end, Xavier's saying to Magneto, you need to stay with us. And he says, no, I tried it your way. I'm going to go my own way. And he went his own way. And that's the basics of the movie. Now, I liked the movie. I wouldn't call it a great movie. There were some holes in it, but this is comics, and you got to expect some holes somewhere. And it seemed to be setting up for the future. Wolverine was there too. He was there. He killed a bunch of people, and he ran off. And it's kind of hinted that he's going to show up in a future movie. But since the actor Hugh Jackman has said he's only going to do one more Wolverine, and that's a standalone movie, unless they talk him into coming back for the next X-Men movie, if it features Wolverine, will have a new actor playing Wolverine. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And that pretty well sums up the movie. I liked it. I recommend it. I wouldn't say that it's a movie that I'm going to watch over and over. I definitely prefer Days of Future Past, the last movie, over this one. But it's still a good movie, and I'd recommend seeing it. So, that's all.
James Green is a stranger whose origin is unknown.